Gripe with Jay, Van, Ryan, Jeffrey, the place where serious and silly complaints come to chat.
Open Mic Gripe is a weekly podcast dedicated to hearing your gripes, grievances, and opinions on any and all topics. Every episode, Jay and I will have the opportunity to get to the bottom of the issues which are lingering on the back of your mind and engage in order to create constructive conversation using a combination of lighthearted comedy and well-formed logic.
If you feel like we are wrong, inappropriate, or biased, then call in, email, or tweet and let your voice be heard. You can email us at openmicgripe@gmail.com or tweet to us at openmicgripe or check out our live radio show 6 to 8 Central Standard Time on Thursdays at 95.9 or streaming at radiofreefargo.org.
That's 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And so jump on in and gripe on the open mic with Jay, Van, Ryan, Jeffrey.
Hey, Gripeteers, thanks for checking out this episode, but we need to apologize as we had some audio issues and you will notice that some parts are cut out.
We're usually quite proud that we have to do minimal editing for this podcast, and so it kills us when we have to remove any part of the conversation.
And we definitely have to apologize to Co-Hosap, the band, and guests that we're in because parts of their conversation and their opinions and gripes were cut out, and we apologize for that.
So don't mind if you hear an occasional transition sound, and please enjoy the episode. Hi, Jay.
We get through those okay.
I love it. Every episode you start off and you'll read the introduction, and you forget that this is actually kind of a fun show.
Well, yeah, sometimes. I suppose sometimes I do forget that.
How are you?
I'm fine. I'm tired, man. I was sanding my wall all day yesterday.
You live on the edge.
Yeah, I know. I live an exciting life of wall sanding.
Okay, so just a moment, we'll get to introducing our guests from the band Co-Hosap. And for the moment, I'd love to get into a hypothetical question. So guys, feel free to join in if you'd like. For this hypothetical question, I'm going to go the slightly less perverted route that I have in the past. But I want to ask you.
I'm sure that's appreciated.
If you could mandate education in America's public schools about any one human being in their life in its entirety, who would you choose to make American students learn about? Jay, what do you think?
Wow, that's a pretty heavy question.
And is it their entire
like their entire
life?
biography, not just their greatest hits?
Okay. What if they don't have that big of a greatest hits as of yet?
Well, I mean that's fine, but their story will be updated. It sounds like. I'm just saying.
Okay,
if you end up choosing Nelson, if you end up choosing Nelson Mandela, for example, you have to talk about the children's hospital bombings and shit that he did.
No, it's an easy answer.
Okay, what?
Me.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought everybody
Donald
about
Trump,
me.
move over. Wow. Narcissistic personality disorder, take effect.
Yeah, it'd be me.
Okay.
If I can force everybody to have to learn about me, why not? And that's why I'm wondering. Then I'm just gonna make sure my greatest hits are fucking great. You know, I'm gonna edit that myself.
You can.
Hey, the winner writes the history, and I guess I won, and I'm writing this history. So,
ladies and gentlemen, the only reason that Jay is a good person is because he wants you to be forced into learning about it.
Maybe you'll finally start living your life the way you always wanted to.
Oh,
Wow.
see,
What?
Jay, it's an invitation to actually do something important.
Hey, I'm living it the way I want to by not doing anything of that much importance.
Okay, fair enough. Who would you guys say?
My mind is boggled
Yeah,
right
I'm
now.
a conscientious objector on that question.
Oh my!
Man, I feel like I'd be doing a disservice to the children. Can you ask us the perverted question instead?
You guys are not gonna pull this. I don't answer hypothetical questions.
I just mandatory.
I think I got a good one, though.
Okay.
I think Cassius Clay Muhammad Ali.
Okay. Okay.
Or someone whose life has been filled with contradictions. In that, he He was an Olympic medal winner, gold medal winner, and he threw his medal away because of the Vietnam War. And, he's still viewed as a hero even today,
Right.
even after such events. And, yeah, so someone that has inherent contradictions and who does things that might seem to some people as if offensive or un-American.
Oh, that's one of my favorite words.
Yeah.
But who is still obviously a hero. But you get to the end of his life and you see the damage that what made him famous did to him. So
Okay.
Is all of
Yeah.
that portrayed in the movie Ali?
I've never seen it, but
If it's not, I'm never gonna learn about Muhammad Ali.
Well, he was
kids
also
watch
instrumental in
Muhammad
the Black Power movement too, by taking
Yes.
control of his own narrative, changing his name, adopting
sure.
Islam, and
Starting out a Christian, converting to
becoming-
Islam,
right.
it seems like an inherent contradiction in America and to a lot of people.
Right.
Not to me, but I just think it's interesting when someone is well known and not afraid to be contradictory
Okay.
publicly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, not necessarily that he was contradictory, but he just took control of his own story. He didn't.
All right, Don, I want to hear your answer now.
Well, I don't know. There's just so many people. I
There's
don't
none
like.
of this conscientious objective. Consider it like a case study about
Okay, so
humanity.
let's say
what kids
it's
know
a
about.
bunch of Christian kids in the school. I'd want them to learn more about.
Why do you
Muhammad
assume it's a
and-
bunch of Christian
Well,
kids?
it depends on the context, I guess, is what I'm
You're
getting
talking
at.
about like all American.
Like all American
education?
kids, so I mean, they all have different backgrounds. They all have different. They're coming from different places, different socioeconomic conditions. Is it going to do? A privileged white kid to learn more about Siddhartha or something, or is it going to do him more?
No, real people.
I'm just saying. Okay.
So Jesus
Oh,
is out.
Jesus is
Okay,
out.
I really like Kurt Gödel,
Okay.
and because he was a contemporary of Einstein.
Yes.
He's not taught very much in history, and he's not taught, as far as I know, a lot in high school. I didn't learn about him until college.
Right.
Very, very smart man.
Name's familiar,
Jewish,
but I don't know
Jewish.
What did he do?
Mathematician. He developed the incompleteness theorem.
Okay.
I think it's related to set theory in math, but it shows that
So why is this important for the kids?
because it'll get them to think critically about stuff, and it'll show that, I don't know, it's important to the kids for one because it shows the importance of being open to immigrants.
Okay.
Because he was very, very, and then it also is important because if they get into his story, will undoubtedly stumble upon the incompleteness theorem, which does more to liberate thought than any other thing I've ever encountered in my
So what? is
scholarly
that?
life.
Well, before we get into that, actually, I want to hear
You know
what
what
Annie
I
and
found?
Hannah's
You know what
answer-
I found to be very liberating to my thought.
Oh, jeez.
I just
Yeah.
I
What?
have an idea.
quick caring, man. Just give up,
Yeah, nihilistic
Really liberating.
cynicism. That's doing our generation a hell of a lot of good, isn't it?
Way to go, Jay. You bear that. You bear that cross for an entire generation.
I will.
So how about you guys? What?
The last guy to bear a cross did pretty good for himself, so... I mean, in terms of people following him and worshiping him, that's all I need, man.
Again, real people. Real people.
Bow down to authority. Let them hang you up, and
All right.
don't fight back.
Ladies, we haven't heard from you guys yet.
I guess my first impulse, is someone I like Dick Cheney.
Oh my god, that's
Which
exactly
is-
what I was going to say.
Seriously?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, 2 for 1 then.
Well, yeah.
And I picked him because of the horrible things that I think he has done, that he's not been charged for. He's in significant places of privilege in our society, and how that affects his influence on our society, and how power, fear-mongering, war machine, like all that stuff comes into play. And on money, too.
Okay.
Yeah, like more important than like knowing who we should admire, we should also like be taught who our enemies really are, you know?
Right.
Ooh, I like that.
super
Internal
important.
enemies, yeah.
Is this the only person the kids are going to learn about?
No, well,
I hope not.
That would change it a little bit.
Yeah,
well,
They'd
I
be
mean, no,
like, that's my hero then.
that's like
If they're
an
only-
example of history that we could learn from our mistakes.
right.
You know?
It's only about the part about how he shot his friend in the face.
I was thinking about that too. All around, great guy.
I appreciate that train of thought actually, because one of the main ideas of how easy it is to trick ourselves into iconizing and venerating figures in history is we simply accept the things that we like about them, and how often people actually go into the lives of Gandhi, Mother Teresa, and they actually find out how these evil human beings
they're
live their
terrible.
lives, and you suddenly realize how dangerous it is to just swallow a story whole.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
Not that you
Very
can't
true.
take anything good from the good things that they did,
Right.
but holy crap, realize that these
Yeah.
aren't people to be trusted completely
Yeah.
or
Or-
emulate, you know?
But do
Absolutely.
Or even
emphasize-
people that, or even just with history, kind of like with Genghis Khan, like all the things that he did, and then afterwards they're like, oh yeah, but because he did this, it united.
Right. Well, I mean,
By the
Alexander
way,
the Great, probably
Right.
one of the worst murderers, and well, he was a warlord,
Yeah.
but we remember him as the Great. Anyway,
Yeah.
I'd probably have to say someone like.
Wait, and did you say something? Somebody said?
oh, I was just going to expand there just slightly that
please.
or clarify that when I said good things, I was referring only to Mahatma Gandhi, not Mother Teresa. She was a piece of shit. Completely. She did not do anything good. So thank you.
you.
That's all I have to say.
Yeah.
Glad you clarified that.
Yeah, I'd probably have to say someone like Richard Feynman, someone who really wanted to work with people to ask them questions about how we learn, and reevaluate how you can teach yourself, and how education is more about the tools that you're given.
Super important.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've heard people say that college is there to teach you how to think,
Yeah.
Right.
and then anything thereafter is applying how you've learned to think. So
Right.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Why not start earlier? Think about thinking when you're in elementary school or something like
Absolutely. Okay, so let's actually, if it's okay, I'll get into introductions. I want to know. So you guys are all from one band,
Yes.
Yep.
right?
Yeah.
The name is Kohosep.
It'd be interesting if we were just bringing in different members of different
Battle of the Bands.
on.
Open
I
mic
don't know the
records.
sound.
Jam session.
All right, so you guys are from a band, Kohosep, and go ahead and introduce yourselves a little bit. I want to figure out who we've got. This is the first time we've had 4 people in the studio.
Yeah, so we'll see how this mic setup works. Hopefully this will work out for us.
It's picking us up, though.
Yes,
Yes,
Sorry,
absolutely.
Cool.
It's always a concern for us.
certainly.
All right.
What?
I'll go first.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm Michael. I just talked about Muhammad Ali, and the reason why is I did a book report on him in 5th grade, and it made a lasting impression. But yeah, I'm in the band. We've been a band for about 1.5 years now.
Yeah.
Played 7 shows. We've played the Aquarium. We've played the Hawk's Nest. We've played the Red Raven, and
And that's all.
that's
Yeah,
all
that's
so
it.
far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're looking to expand and play different venues. So if someone is out there listening and they're like, hey, why don't you come play? Even if it's like a house party, that'd be pretty fun.
Okay.
Look for us on Facebook, Kohosep.
Okay, well, I'll be pulling you guys in for some political fundraisers.
Yes.
We've got one.
Do you have set
Political
instruments?
songs.
No.
No.
Okay.
That's one of the features of the band is that we all switch instruments depending, and there isn't a main songwriter, there isn't a main singer. Kohosap means co-homo sapiens, and I think Don has said that we're very anarchistic in that there aren't any rules. And that ties into the punk ethos, I guess. So when people ask me what kind of band I am, I sort of don't want to say punk band because there's some weird implications a lot of the time, but in that sense, we are a punk band.
Yeah, but aesthetically, we're all
All
over the
over.
map, right?
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
very experimental and follow our whims
Yeah.
and
Nothing.
just love to make music together.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
right.
And who are you, sir?
My name is Don. And yep.
That's it?
Or Donald William Renner is my name. And yes, I resent the fact that I share the name of Voldemort. So anyway, there's that.
Okay.
I grew up in Fargo. I've been active in the punk scene here since I was a teenager in different bands. Skateboarded. Know a lot of the musicians from that era.
Okay.
Stumbled upon these guys just by, I don't know. I mean, I met her in art school, Anna, my wife here. And then, I don't know.
Well, you guys were in Stepmods.
Yeah, we were in
Yeah.
a previous band, and that didn't really work out, but I think, well, we were the rhythm section in that band, so maybe that's part of it. But also our
So
awesome, wonderful partners are really the ones that sort of drove the creation of the band. So maybe
Oh,
we should
yeah.
talk about you two.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
guys
so
were
let's
in
meet the
Stepmods,
partners.
and we were kind of just figuring out, like, well, what should we do while they're making all this fucking noise? So we started having, like, lady dates together and
What's your name? by the way?
Oh, my name's Anna Louise Shields Renner, and Don is my husband. But yeah, Annie and I just started hanging out while you guys were playing your music.
Yeah.
And we both played piano as kids and had a love of music, so we started doing our own thing. So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm Annie Winter, by the way. I just waved to the microphone.
Where is the camera at?
It's so rude. It
Where's the
refuses to
camera?
wave back.
Oh, there it is.
That's awesome. Okay. Yeah, no, it's really funny. I remember I first started dating Michael when Stat Mods were practicing, and I would go over there sometimes, just be like at first it was kind of like hoping to like help out or something, like see if I maybe could fit in, because I had ability. I didn't know Anne at the time, and
I had ability.
I did. I had a lot of ability. But yeah, it turned out to be kind of a shit show. And like I'd walk upstairs and like Anna would be sitting on the couch like all grumpy, and she'd have her headphones on just blaring, like trying to watch a TV show, and just like this awful noise coming out of the basement. It wasn't awful,
Hey,
but it was
Earlier.
no, it wasn't.
I like how we're getting the
We're already
The
fighting.
music was really good, but it was super fucking loud, like when you're just trying to chill it after work, and like,
Yeah.
so like I think like eventually we kind of started to bond, like, hey, we don't really have to just sit up here and listen to the main music. We can go try to do our own shit.
Yeah.
So eventually, after all of that diffused, we just thought, hey, why don't we get together in the basement, try to do some stuff, and then before you know it, anytime Don hears somebody making music, of course, his natural inclination is to come downstairs and to join in.
That's gonna
It just kind of happened on its own, and get together at parties, and it just kind of started rolling from there.
Did you guys jam together the
Very-
first time without me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we did for sure.
So you guys like making a lot of loud noise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In other words.
No, well, co-host app, we toned
Well-
back on the volume. We're not, it was the first band, the Stat Mods,
Yeah.
like we abused volume. I mean,
Wall
that was one of
noise.
my biggest complaints about playing that band, is that some of the musicians would just crank their guitar amps up.
All right.
So, you know what I think is interesting is that we have basically 3 married couples in here.
Really?
Because we argue like a married
You do.
couple.
Yes, that's
like
true.
we do. We tend to bicker back and forth a lot.
I'm assuming you guys aren't married.
We are not married.
Not married. Sorry, my
We're
apologies.
legally obligated to each
We're
other.
legally obligated. We're legally obligated to love each other.
Yeah, right.
Contract.
Yeah, I suppose. Jay, you are the best of times and the worst of times. All combined into one.
I complete you. I know.
I love you.
Oh my god, does anybody have some John Tesh to play in the background right now? That was beautiful.
All right. So we had a little bit of a recording problem there, but we're back now. And I was happy to learn that these 4 wonderful people have actually put considerable thought into their gripes coming into this show.
Well,
So
can I ask him a quick question? Just since I didn't catch this, what is co-host app? What type of music? I mean, are you like you said? It
It's a-
encompasses the real philosophy of punk.
Sounds like some real
But
hippie
what-
shit to me.
Well,
But what is it? Is it a harder sound? Is it a?
There's a lot of
we are
different-
honestly stylistically all over the map. We have some straightforward, more punk sounding songs that we,
Yeah.
but then we have like some kind of
There's some real
dreamy
psychedelic
songs
Yeah.
Well, we have
and some political songs.
So
we
you're
have 3 keyboards, guitars, bass, drums,
And the chaos
and the
pad.
chaos pad, which we use for vocal effects processing.
And cowbell.
Cowbell.
So I
Ring
think
stick.
I don't know
Of course,
about you
need more
guys.
cowbell.
A touchstone for me is like Radiohead, who makes a lot of
Okay.
styles of music, and they aren't just doing one kind of music, and they're using different instruments based on their interests. Like
Excellent.
I
Okay.
would
that
say,
might be
yeah,
the
that-
longest run-on sentence we've ever had on the show.
man, that's nothing.
Go, Michael,
ready.
go.
Okay, that's really cool. Well, you just had to say you're like the American version of Queen, plus a little bit of Fleetwood Mac.
Ooh! Okay.
I would say that's about right. Yeah.
And you say you don't listen
With
to
a little
music.
bit of the Who in there, too.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Absolutely. Okay, so
So yeah, your gripes.
I want to know. It sounded like when I asked you about gripes before, it sounded like you not only had just a list of them ready to go, but you had. It was clear to me
Well,
that
I
you
think
thought
somebody
about it
has
quite well.
notes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've got about 350 note cards to go through.
No, they're not all filled.
Man,
They're
I
not.
have
This is
a
all. These are all
extra
blank.
Just for looks.
So there's a lot. Yeah, it's like
You're
Don
right.
has 349 of them, and you have one.
Don brought props. Okay.
nice.
So what kind of issues? What I mean, if you had to
He
encompass
is the
like a
carrot top of
Yes.
the co-host.
No, he's more like the Gallaghers. He's always smashing fruit on stage. So.
Yeah.
that fruit is going to be my mind.
Oh,
exploding.
yes, your mind grapes are going to explode.
Mine.
So what kind of gripes would you guys be able to summarize a lot of the stuff you can think of? I mean, is it more silly gripes? Is it more...
No, I don't have silly. I do, but I mean like.
Mine are socio-political.
Yeah, mine
Yeah.
are too for the most
Okay.
part.
No, they're serious gripes.
Serious
Well,
grapes.
let's bring them on.
Yeah.
Well,
We'll see how long I last.
just one thing. This is my newest kind of obsession. Is learned a new term today: stochastic terrorism.
You learned a new term today and you're already
Yeah.
obsessed with it.
Well, not obsessed, just processing. I'm in process,
okay.
right? Okay, so it's the use of mass media to stir up random lone wolves to carry out violent or terrorist acts that are statistically predictable but individually unpredictable.
You should read audiobooks.
I feel
He
like
does have a good voice.
would that be kind of like what like Bin Laden was trying to do with his
That's the
videos
example,
and
yeah.
everything is
Yeah.
trying to then incite basically lone people to go out and incite these same acts.
Yeah. But you can see it now in America with the tactics that the Republican Party are using, and it's pretty clear that that's what's going on. They're using fear to...
What are they trying to get people to go out and do?
just create instability and terror, because when people get afraid, they cling to power.
They're using
So
the
they
same
want them to
stuff.
like go out and yell at Mexicans. I mean, what are they
they'd
trying to get?
okay, so just for some examples of what's happened recently, there was a guy who was beat up in Boston. Because
Trump
kids,
supporters?
the Trump supporters, there's been violence against
right.
Muslims. The attacks on Planned Parenthood that just happened. The white supremacists are going and shooting the Black Lives Matter protesters. That's all being fueled by the hate speech from Fox News, Donald Trump, the entire Republican Party.
Right.
You know, that's their MO, is to divide and conquer, to keep us afraid of each other. You know, and I'm pretty sick of it. I'm just like disgusted to the
What's
point
your solution?
where I don't know.
He-
You know,
he
I mean,
barely
really,
got
like
into
you
his
could make
gripe,
a
man.
pretty good case that they are actually committing treason. They're violating the Constitution on many levels.
Is this one of those un-American claims?
Yeah.
Well, call it what you. I mean, un-American. I don't. That term is sort of a derailment tactic, I think.
But
to
it's
use
stuff
it.
you disagree with. I mean, would you say...
I disagree with violence and,
Right.
and trying to pit people together, strategically using that in the media. Yeah, I think that's evil. I think that should be shut down. I mean, that's just
So
clearly...
it's a censorship need?
You know, the First Amendment is very important, but if they were more transparent in that, I don't know. I don't know if that's the solution. I don't. I once we go down that, it's a slippery slope. I understand. You know, they're gonna they'd shut me down. You know, of course,
Right.
because I'm speaking out against it. But the fact of the matter is, they're not taking any responsibility, and they're continuing their false narrative, which is, you know, I think as Americans, we just have to not play that game. Just not be afraid of each other.
I
You
think
know, I don't know what else
As
the
part of a global
solution is.
community.
False
No.
narrative is the thing. I mean, it's not necessarily like censorship that people can't say what they think, but when people present, you know, something as a fact and it's not truly a fact, you know, like there weren't Muslims like cheering on the other side of the river
Right.
when
Yeah.
the towers fell. That did not happen. So like that there's no level of accountability there, you know.
When you have faith-based politics, you're always going to have this problem because you're not having the conversations. People are encouraged to believe whatever they want to, whatever makes them feel good. And that's what source of a lot of these problems are. If we can't have conversations in the street about politics, sexuality, philosophy, whatever you want, then how can you expect people to understand a different perspective? You know, that's...
If you had it your way, you would just be able to stop anybody on the street and have that conversation at them.
You know?
Well, I mean,
I'm the same way.
there
know.
needs to be areas of professionalism when you're not going into these issues. But
Right.
I mean, for the most part, we need to. It's a responsibility of a healthy society to learn how to have peaceful conversations with people you disagree with.
Yeah. That's it.
Religion that they're clearly committing treason. I mean, they're violating the Constitution.
yeah,
And when they're
is-
threatening people's civil rights,
Is
come
it
on.
considered like censorship by like saying that somebody cannot say this or like forcing them to correct themselves if they actually provide false information? It's not a matter of
Right,
saying
truth
what
in
you
media.
want to for your
Yeah, isn't there
opinion,
a Truth
but
in Media Act or something
There's
like that?
Youth
ethics
on the
in journalism.
Yeah, well,
But,
those
like-
fuckers don't give a shit about ethics.
the level of accountability is obviously like not
It's
there.
not there at
If we
all.
can continue to have people saying that, oh, you know, we shouldn't allow Syrian refugees here based on information that's completely false, you know.
Yeah. And how fast that propaganda machine just spread
So
across
should
the-
these organizations
Is the problem the propaganda machine, or is the problem the fact that we don't know how to think critically as adults?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah.
See,
I
can
mean,
I
that's
can
it.
I follow up on my point where
Yeah,
I was
please.
saying,
Yeah. Fear. You were talking to...
if I can quote Dune, I think, fear is the mind killer. Why we don't want to censorship that speech is because that's people laying out how they really feel and what they really want to do. And we want to see people's real intentions, I think, to be able to say, hey, you're wrong. So if this is politics of fear, which I think it is, because I think it's pretty obvious that fear is a good motivator for the Republican base. It got George W. Bush elected twice. So if at the basis of this is that people are too afraid to make a decision based on, you know, rationality, then they've already won. So
Well, yeah, and I see a lot of time it because of fear, people are just willing to give up.
yes, give up your rights. 'Cause
Give
you're
up your
afraid.
rights and just give up and just you take care of it.
Yeah, and the problem's so
you
big.
legislate everything, and I won't have a problem with it if it gives me a modicum feeling
Right.
of safety.
Yep.
This
which
is not a
is
new problem.
false.
No,
Comfort.
it's not,
Definitely
no.
not.
Comfort, you know.
It's
You
not.
can be comfortable in your ignorance and somebody else can take the reins. Well, that's
I think we
all the better for an apathetic society.
So I've got a gripe that ties into this neatly, is when people on Facebook see something within society that they disagree with very strongly, you often see on Facebook people saying, unfriend me if you think this way or this way. And what this is doing is isolating intolerance.
Yeah.
Intolerance doesn't go away if you isolate it. Intolerance actually becomes worse when you isolate it. So I find it hard to believe that people would disagree so strongly about things and see things as racist and bigoted, but not want to address it, just to simply ignore it.
Well,
That's why I don't unfriend anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It bugs the crap out of me, but I still look at that shit because I want to know what they're up to, I guess, in a way.
I totally respect that, and I think I've been on both sides. At the same time, though, like, just for your own personal well-being, sometimes you need to not invite violence into your life. Sometimes the comments are that hurtful and damaging to you that you have to know what's good for you and when to say when. So, I mean, I would have to advocate to both sides. I think that you should continue to speak out as long as it's not harmful to your personal well-being. Yeah.
I had to unfriend people because I just couldn't lie anymore. I mean, I wasn't gonna play that fake Facebook game. I cleaned house on my Facebook friends, and had some racist reactionary friends from growing up that were my Facebook friends, and I'm like, why do I lie? I do not like these people.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good enough reason to.
Well, right, and the conversation, it's not going to happen. It just, you get to a point where you just start throwing stones at each other. And it's like, what point is that?
Necessarily the place to have these conversations either. Like
Right.
this
It's
format, I think, is better.
Show me pictures of your babies and food, but don't talk about racism.
Yeah, don't talk about things that matter.
I'm joking, but
try to get to the heart of the issue.
You know,
But
if you
But at
have
times-
a
but
conversation
again,
face to face with somebody on these big issues, you come out with a different result from the conversation than you do when you're just on social media. And
I don't know. In a way, to an extent, because I think that there's a lot of people that I mean, us having this conversation here now, I think we would have a very similar conversation online. Mm-hmm. And I think that the same people that you would have a face-to-face conversation with that you wouldn't want to have an online conversation with, they probably would be probably not quite as horrible in person. But I would have to say that I don't think people would be that different. I know that there is a whole thing where some people, the anonymity.
I have to disagree with you.
But I mean, I know some people it does, the anonymity, but on Facebook, if you're not.
It's not about anonymity as much as it is about, I mean, I think something I've said on the show before is that the conservative mind is wholly characterized by a lack of empathy and compassion. And when you combine that with internet-based communication, what you're doing is adding the road rage effect to the conversation. It's easy to demonize people who aren't directly in front of you, that you cannot relate to, that you cannot see their pain and anguish when you say something.
Exactly.
And I think it provides an opportunity for a lot of these conservative minds, and liberal minds for that matter, to just walk all over people, to shame people without any awareness of how they're feeling. And I think that's always going to be the problem with online communication.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Well said.
So in terms of a lot of these social justice issues, how do you guys confront society about these things?
Yeah, that's something I've been dealing with a lot this year. Since Ferguson and Black Lives Matter started here in America, I started paying more attention and started realizing like all these things about myself and my white privilege and just privilege in general on many levels, and trying to figure out like what I could do got really frustrating and really depressing for a while until I realized that it's little things, making sure that I don't let it slide, like when this dick on my social media says something horribly racist and everyone that can see his post sees that hateful stuff.
But why do you have to go straight to calling him a dick in this example?
Because he is a dick. Okay, he's a racist bigot and hypocrite. Okay, that's a better description. I don't want young people or impressionable minds to see that on their feed and not see anyone call them out.
But these are sincerely held beliefs that they're espousing. It's not like they're trying to troll the internet.
Right, and I'm not trying to change that person's mind. I'm just adding another opinion or another viewpoint to that narrative on that feed so that somebody else looking at that feed like that lurks there and doesn't say anything, doesn't post things, doesn't comment, doesn't like, but they read that stuff and they might have an impressionable mind, and if all they see is hate speech and they don't see anyone say something against it, I think that's where my responsibility comes in. That's what I feel personally.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of studies have continually pointed to this idea that anytime you don't confront intolerance, you become slightly more intolerant yourself.
Yeah.
So
I'm complacent with it.
yes, complacent with intolerance, which is a
Yeah.
weird thing to think about, but we've come a long way in the last century.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow.
What other kind of gripes have you come up with, by the way? We're just going to jump around today, I think.
Mine is mostly about fear mongering and the war machine. Ever since the attacks in Paris, it seems like the whole world is ready to just bomb, whoever
Every
they're
time.
pointing the finger at that day.
Manufactured consent.
Manufactured consent. And it happened after 9/11 in America. It happens all the time. And I don't think it solves the problem of terrorism or violence in the world.
But it's a big, scary topic, and a lot of people who don't have the time to, let me say, who don't take the time to browse over the news every single day and follow the political establishments of the Middle East are going to be scared. And rightfully so, of this big unknown thing. And we're talking about Islam as well, often in the media these days. Probably one of the least understood religions. And for a lot of people, they just want simple solutions. They want to know it's taken care of.
Yeah.
How do you calm the minds of so many people who don't know about these issues?
You kill them all. You bomb them.
God.
You just bomb it, and then we don't have to think about it.
There it is.
The one-stop solution.
Yep.
We're bombing Chicago now.
Yeah, I don't want to worry about them either.
Okay.
I'll let my buddy know. I'm
Can
like,
we bomb
get out.
Texas, like all of Texas except for Austin?
These are very smart bombs. They bomb everybody who isn't smart.
Well, let's look at the bright side.
I don't
North
think
Dakota-
you can use reason as a tool to convince people who are afraid. Their fight or flight response has been triggered or whatever. They need to go through an experience somehow, right?
How do you give someone an experience or a
Saying Hodor for
Hodor.
All right, we're back. So let me ask that question quickly again, which is, how can you offer someone perspective or an experience that's really going to open their mind about something without putting them through situations which can be considered harsh and even at times torture?
So are you talking about getting rid of fear, fear of like the other, or fear of Muslims here in America?
A lot of times when we talk about, for the most part, we're all liberals in this crowd here. And when we talk about the conservative mindset, it is almost like a strange level of vindication that we want to show people that these policies are not good for the well-being of the people involved in their areas. And how often have you wondered privately to yourself that Texas would actually just go fuck off by itself and create its own country, and
Well,
let's see where
about
those. I know they're trying to be oftentimes secessionist, but when it comes to that, yeah, you kind of want to see what would happen to Texas if they put forth their radical Christian conservative ideals. But wouldn't it be the most inhumane experiment? One of the most inhumane experiments ever to subject all those future children to horrible educational standards, to oppression and religious bigotry. I mean, that's kind of what we're getting at. How can you give people the perspective?
And then later on, if they don't want democracy, we bomb them.
Well, they've got oil.
No, that's true. We don't want. Oh, now you've made a conundrum.
Actually, that's how we can take Texas back.
That's why we wouldn't get rid of them.
Yeah. But I mean, how can you in
Yeah.
any situation, how can you give perspective or experience to someone?
It's just like back in high school where you're friends with that really guy who's super obnoxious, but his family has money, so they always have like the cool parties and everything. You gotta remain friends with them. You just gotta put up with them. They have something that you can use. So you gotta put up with them.
I'm thinking
That's you, Texas.
That's Texas.
Especially you, Lubbock.
Oh, yeah.
Screw you, Lubbock, Texas.
Just a little bit of background on that one. We have a segment called Stranger Anger, where we call random numbers across
Where
the
we
country.
cold call people across the U.S. and try to get them to gripe.
And it's actually been, in many ways, very successful. People
That's
are, the
awesome.
moment you give people the mic, they are ready to go.
They're ready to.
Wow.
They're ready to go.
If we can get them on long enough to let them understand that we're not selling them anything, we
Yeah.
just want them to gripe, then it's okay. Except for Lubbock, I'm talking about you, Lubbock, Texas, is that we couldn't even get anybody to answer, let alone, and if they did, they were just like, nope, and just off the phone as quickly as could be. So-
Hours we
Huh.
spent on Lubbock, Texas.
That's
Isolation
fascinating,
is-
man.
Yeah.
That's you guys are. That's almost like an art kind of thing you guys are doing, like a social activist.
Yeah, kind of like our
Performance or a
grassroots
happening.
podcast.
Yeah. It's happening.
We bring it to the people, whether they like it or not.
I think your question. We can rule out what doesn't work for sure.
Okay.
Well, like trying to argue with people, that doesn't work.
Well, I think the
Trying
very
to
nature
argue
of the
your
word argue means that you're pitting people against each other.
Right.
How does anyone learn
Isolationism doesn't work.
Well, I think,
repeated messaging, like messaging and
harassment.
harassment? In a way, it
Or
is. I
if
mean,
you're
like
Screams louder.
no. I mean, I've seen people in like internet chat forums that have actually changed their mind because, like news article after news article, I keep coming back at them and explaining why. Bombing civilians, it's expected that civilians will die. It's not a
Right.
side
It's not
effect.
absolute, yeah.
It's assumed. And this person finally like picked up on that. They're like,
I do
"Good
actually
point.
think.
I know we're not targeting them, but we actually know and expect many civilians to die. So it's almost like a little tipping point. And it's for anyone who's learning anything new, it's keep doing it.
Right, plant the seed.
Plant
But
the
the
seed.
key there is having someone with an open mind who actually
Someone
cares
who will
about
speak.
learning.
Yeah.
And
Right.
the problem with that is
Yeah.
anytime you get into the stereotypical argument, especially in the Midwest, people automatically turn their brains off and
Yeah.
entrench themselves and dig
Right.
in. The tricky part comes to how do you have a conversation with somebody you radically disagree with and try to understand their position a little bit better.
Practice. You got to practice doing it.
Or you
Yeah.
just don't.
I don't assume that I can
You all
do it.
sit
Yeah.
around naked.
Yes.
Let it all out.
I mean, I really think you
Let it
need to
feel-
like watch how you spend your energy. Like seriously, like why would you spend time talking to somebody who is that hateful or that awful or that violent? Like why? When maybe those people that are on the fence who do have an open mind, maybe they are few and far between. But you gotta look for them and spend all of your energy there because that's the only place that really, really matters.
Choosing your batters.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Of course, because you can't teach empathy.
No.
It's not something that you're going to teach someone if they haven't already internalized it, even as children.
Well, some people are just born without it.
Huh? I don't know.
Oh, well, no, I know that. But I mean, you choose your battles. Like, people only have so much time, so much to do. You find a way to get your voice out there. Maybe it's a podcast, or maybe it's just someone at work.
Fox News.
Yeah. Hey, if we know what they're thinking, we know how to counter their arguments.
They're
Yeah,
pulling over all of those
exactly.
78-year-olds on the fence.
Yeah.
I don't know, yeah. Just bring them a nice hot meal and then have a nice discussion. Like Meals on Wheels, but political. Why not?
No,
Oh,
that's
we should
nice.
do that.
Bring them food and
Yeah.
then make them talk about politics.
Yeah. Why not? That's when
I
people
would
talk
like
over
that if
food.
it was over, yeah.
Who's going to turn down free food?
I think you're right there, except one thing I would add to that is that empathy is the result of awareness.
People on the other side pulling the strings and trying to shut us down.
It's totally
anonymous.
on. Cut at the
It's
fuck
anonymous.
already.
Yeah.
Anonymous sees us as a threat.
You still got that magnetic plate in your head?
If you require
I've
a,
got
Oh,
4.
you got magnetic plates?
Well, not magnetic. Just metal.
if you require awareness to be to raise empathy about any given situation, how are we encouraging awareness about things? How do we pique that curiosity in so many minds today? Oftentimes, learning itself is an uphill battle. Obviously, as age decreases, we're seeing a heightened intellectualism, which obviously is getting a lot better. But for so many people, the very act of learning, reading books, I'm pointing at Jay right now, is
I'll
just
do
not an
books.
option.
Not going to happen.
Oh no, I don't do books.
Okay, so this brings us back to the hypothetical question at the beginning.
Yeah.
Who should we Yeah, right, done. Who do we teach the next generation about, and why?
Well, it's not really about who, but how.
See, teach about me, and then I could be the anti-example.
Oh, yes.
We need
See
to
what
learn.
happened with this guy? This guy
Zombie
didn't read
smoker.
books.
You do not want to be like him.
I think when you look at the French education system, it's designed around the concepts of polemic, the art of discussion, debate, and discourse. And it's giving tools necessary to allow people to know how to ask these questions and how to learn for themselves. And we're not even able to approach controversial discussions in school at all. Because of school boards, they want to remove the possibility of offending parents.
Yeah.
How is that even a factor in our education today?
It impedes it.
It does.
Completely destructive to it.
For me, how I feel like I've gained the sense of empathy I have is because of curiosity and follow through to answer that question I have in my mind. Even if it's something as simple like, well, one weird maybe example was I grew up seeing a lot of people wearing Malcolm X hats, Malcolm X t-shirts, and I was like, that's a pretty cool design. I like the logo there and stuff like that. And I'm like, what's behind this? And it just happened, my teacher had a book about him. I was like 5th grade or something. And it was just like a curiosity from someone's clothing. And I didn't even know what it meant at the time. I
thought it was a brand?
I thought it was a brand
Yeah.
or something I'd seen. And it was just like, okay, this is an interesting rabbit hole. Just promoting the ability to follow your curiosity.
Okay.
And not simply showing the way it is. Allowing someone to explore the way it is.
Yeah, see, that's why I think that the very best way to create a good argument with somebody who disagrees strongly with you is to present information without any kind of opinion attached to it. Meaning,
News
these are
articles.
exactly and that's especially helpful when you're dealing with somebody, who might be a different race or gender. I know it's helped me learn how to understand my own gender and to understand the position of people of color when you just take a look at the hard facts. And I don't think anyone should necessarily have to be that sensitive with me, but when you are dealing with somebody who is unreasonable, that's the best way to get your point across, because they're not going to buy into your rhetoric. They don't give
And
a
actually-
shit about that, but you can't argue with numbers.
And also numbers and human stories too, because actually when you're talking about privilege, and I was thinking about back when I taught interpersonal communication out in Michigan. And one thing that I set up in my classroom, and I actually did have a diverse classroom, unlike if I would teach the same class here in North Dakota. I had a very diverse classroom of ages.
Yes, please.
So diverse of ages and races and everything. And I spent about 2 weeks setting it up that, again, nobody has to agree with anybody else. They didn't even have to agree. I made it very clear that you don't even ever have to agree with me. That's not the point of the class at all, is for you to just agree with whatever it is that I'm teaching you. You can always question it, whatever it is, but you always have to respect myself and your classmates, and I will do the same. And I will respect you, and we don't ever have to agree, but we're going to respect each other's opinion. And it was interesting because I taught for a couple years, and it was finally that year where I finally got it right in terms of setting up that dynamic of an open communication where people actually felt comfortable speaking with each other and disagreeing. But it was amazing at the end when I had the reviews about how it was amazing how people opened their minds. You could actually see it
That's
happen.
awesome.
I had
It's a
one
safe place.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Safe environment for their conversation. Yeah.
Was there one thing that finally made you feel like you were successful?
honestly, I think a challenge in the beginning helped me more than anything. There was a 40-year-old Marine and very obvious Republican because, and I knew just right away that this guy was going to be kind of an interesting issue, especially since the first day of class, I went into class and pretended to be a student advisor. And just to see how people would react and how they would treat somebody that was helping out when the professor wasn't there. As a little social experiment. And then the next week when they showed up, some people were like, oh, same person. But what that 40-year-old Marine, I was talking about respect, and I said we have to respect each other, and he said, well, why should I respect you? And I said, there's two things. I said, you're in the military, correct? And I said, because I said there's two things, deserved respect and earned respect. And I said, now you have a ranking in the military, correct? And he's like, yeah. And I said, I'm guessing like an admiral or whatever is above a sergeant. I'm not going to get these right. But he's like, but do you, and so they have deserved respect for their rank. I said, but I bet you respect somebody with a lower rank more than somebody with a higher rank because of earned respect, correct? And he's like, yes. I said, well, I deserve respect, and I listed out even with, because I think I was 24 at the time. I said, this is why I have deserved respect. I said, by the end of the class, I said, I hope to have earned respect. And never did we see eye to eye, but at the end of the classroom, he actually even gave me a great review.
That's
and everything.
awesome, man.
That's a
And
wonderful experience.
And I think that
Wow.
that just being very open with this guy, that it was very clear we were never going to see eye to eye, and people seeing that, hey, this guy, but it's not going to be an interference. It's not like, hey, no, you have to listen to me. I'm going to try to overpower you just because I'm the teacher. I think that really set it off on the right foot. So
Nice
how
work, man.
Some of the
Jesus.
the best experiences I've had with education have been classes like that. I think a lot of them were minority studies and sociology
Right.
classes.
But the professor really has to make sure that
Yeah.
you feel safe in his or her classroom.
Right.
Otherwise, it's just not going to happen.
yeah,
Yeah.
discussions were always very, you had to pay a lot of attention to draw that line of where does it become a little too much. You're kind of going a little bit
Yeah.
overboard and not pushing your view as opposed to sharing your view.
Right.
Right.
But yeah, I thought
On that note, I want to ask you guys, specifically, one of the things we've talked about on past episodes is media entrenchment. This idea that oftentimes we're just exposed to the opinions in the media and on social media as well, which we naturally agree with. Obviously, you're going to click on the things you agree with, and you're not going to really read into or click on
well,
the
and
things
now
you
with
disagree
targeting advertising on the
Right.
internet and everything,
Oh, yeah.
we're going to show you what you want.
So along that way, it's just I see a lot of frustration amongst liberals and conservatives in this country about people not getting it. You know, they always use that expression. So
Where's the middle ground? How can we
Yeah.
bridge that?
no, I mean, there's no such thing as a middle ground because middle ground is never in the middle.
How do we tackle
Yeah.
that?
Well, if you haven't thought about your viewpoint and developed a solid argument for the things you believe, then you don't have a chance of defending them against someone else,
Yeah.
whether they're being rational or not. So if you have a well thought out reason for believing what you believe, and if you find that using rationality leads you to the understanding or the realization that, okay, maybe I was wrong about this. If you can't do that yourself, and if you haven't done that about this particular topic, you should start there.
But so many people haven't. So
Yeah.
many people have not thought about
Oh,
why
yeah.
why they believe what they believe or why they even do what they
It
do.
goes back to
So I
the
think
question of curiosity, and the best students
Mm-hmm.
are the curious ones. If you haven't thought about what you've done, how are you going to tell someone else
Right.
that they're wrong?
I want to go back to your gripes a little bit here, and I just for the sake of time, I want to try to keep it concise. But if each of you could really come up with some things that are on your mind, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, I can say a gripe real fast here, and it's real succinct. So, money has no real value. It's fake. It only has value because we agree to participate in the game. It is a form of social control. The real value of money is enforced by the violence or the threat of violence from the state. It's the only thing that keeps the system together, and you see that everywhere.
Done.
And
Can
it is-
I really comment that one?
Hold on. I have a question for
And
Don.
there's-
Oh,
first.
wonderful.
we live in a nihilist voodoo economy. So, and I can read more
So Don.
things to
I
back
don't
that
understand
up.
the voodoo.
Okay,
That's another- that.
in terms of money, I have an important question for you.
Okay.
If I had a picture of your penis
Yeah.
And how much would you pay for me not to release that out into?
I would not pay you a fucking dime.
All right, then his Ditcoin doesn't have much value.
It
to
doesn't. My Bitcoin is
Bitcoin.
absolutely.
All right, that's so
worthless.
his Ditcoin is out in the market.
I don't think
open
anybody would
for,
want to see my penis anyway. So
Just all right. I'm just saying, I'm working on an alternative cryptocurrency called Ditcoin.
Nice.
And it's where I get pictures of dudes' dicks, and it's their value is based on whether they want that released out into the world or not.
Awesome.
You could get money from people who want you to take the photos down too, like that.
Exactly,
Hey, man.
exactly.
What about females who want to participate? What's their currency called?
I think
Yeah,
it automatically
that's right.
has a little inflation, and at least in Western culture.
Yeah.
Bash cash.
Litecoin.
Bitcoin, yes. That's
I like it.
Okay.
Excellent. I like that.
Damn.
Thank you.
Cheers to the
Cheers.
Bitcoin.
deal with
It's been fun.
This just
The
happened.
wheel
This
of
just
death
started
and
happening.
You've got a gripe.
frozen.
I've got a
computer.
gripe.
Yeah.
Why the fuck can't I buy clothing at a reasonable price that's been made in the United States? That's all I want, man.
No,
I can't like find anything that.
But what if our guest just checked out?
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm just
Well,
listening.
it's a good thing we have a couch in the studio. Just so now I feel like we need to be asking him more poignant questions about his childhood.
No.
It's like I'm getting off the couch again. As soon as I said we're gonna ask questions about your childhood.
Yeah,
that's what I
yeah.
asked.
I'm
Why
sorry,
the fuck
one more
can
time.
you not buy clothing where? What?
Why the fuck can't I buy clothes that were made in the U.S. for a reasonable price? So not $250 jeans. I'm like, me and Annie are sort of to the point where we just want to go buy used clothing because I don't want to support an industry that relies on basically slave wages.
Right. I also don't
Yeah.
want to support like some thrift stores
Yeah.
though that
Yeah,
say that they're
shitty
giving
thrift
everything
store,
for
and
charity and then
I
they're
hate-
keeping like
Also-
90% of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why is American Apparel such shitty ass clothing?
Never been there.
I don't know. I've only ever had
Is it
secondhand clothing as an option. I've never really purchased new
Oh, man.
clothes.
Yeah.
We're
Shoot.
lacking industry.
Maybe I
Isn't
should've
that
just
part
stuck
of
with
why
that.
we're going to war so that we can boost our military industry and then you get money from the industries that you have in your
So you're
piece
saying
of
that we
land.
should wrap all of our veterans in denim, and then we have a state-owned denim company that can make jeans for cheap.
Oh no, I'm saying that if we bomb the slave
I'm liking
labor
it.
camps.
Oh,
Okay,
yep.
and I'm being completely facetious here. If we switch our efforts to bombing those slave labor camps for Old Navy and DKNY or who the fuck ever you want, whoever makes Calvin Klein jeans, let's say they're in Malaysia, we bomb them. And we
Then the
bomb
price of jeans is
Old
$500 a pair.
Well, no. Then we build a factory in America, where we start making our own jeans, and we wipe out the entire competition in the world.
I'm afraid globalization is a lot more complicated than that, and a lot of times, depending on the company and depending on the conditions present in the community that they're built, the factories are built, these people have some of the best paying jobs, and in fact, more
the
often
area.
than not, having lived in a number of third world countries, the economy is such that people more than anything want to work for an American company because those are the only companies with oversight, and those are the only companies that offer benefits, that offer livable wages, and a lot of times those are the only companies that have any sense of safety inspection. So as horrible as they are compared to our standards here in the States, a lot of times they're better than what they have as an alternative.
So how do
very
we
good
decide? How do we know who's actually paying their workers well enough to where they can
On research.
Consumer
live like an
responsibility.
American?
Yeah.
Like where?
Yeah.
Maybe that's it. It'd be nice to see more companies actually be proud about saying that. Say, hey,
Right.
like out front, like that would get my business.
And it's almost
Well,
like
I think
saying,
it is.
"Hey,
I think
we're
it has changed, and I think
the
more
companies
companies
aren't as
are
bad
knowing.
as how they would normally be treated." The American companies come in there, and it's like setting the bar really low, though, man. I mean,
Yeah.
they can go in and get super cheap labor, and they're not treating them as poorly as they normally would
Yeah.
be treating, but. The imperialists come and they're it's the
Annie's
same
gonna
it's the
scream
same
over
story,
here.
you know what?
Annie's gonna scream
Oh.
over here. What are you?
As bad? As bad?
Well, no, I'm just saying that's
I mean,
the argument
that
he's
doesn't
presenting.
I know,
that's the argument he's
What
presenting.
I'm
I know,
suggesting
but,
is
like,
that each
that's
economy works within a bubble in itself, and it's
Well,
Yeah.
you know, it
understand
doesn't
this,
though.
even
It's a
if
global
better-
economy, man.
You let her talk.
Okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
Even if it's better than the absolute worst, we're still supporting it. I mean, you can build the and
How-
however they want to, but there's a lot of information out there that shows you the way it actually
I
goes.
think what we should do is
It's
just
not that rosy.
and
what we could do that would make me happy is apply U.S. laws to companies that actually produce things that are going to wind up in the U.S. That means minimum wages. That means, you know,
So there's a number of problems with each of these suggestions.
Yeah.
Number one, for example, you can't impose U.S. laws on companies that aren't actually American. Despite being founded in America, a lot of these companies are based overseas because
the UN needs more teeth. Then I mean,
well, no. But if this company can't
if
guarantee this
countries-
happening, we go to a different company.
yeah, and we quit
We don't
participating.
support it.
Yeah, I
Just
think
don't
you know.
support it.
$100.
what you're doing though at the end of the day is supporting the oppressive tradition-based economy that a lot of these countries live by. I mean, in so many ways, you see high rises in modern developed cities in third world countries right next to slums.
Sure.
Because everybody needs their services and people don't want to give up
We see
having
that in
access to
America,
drivers,
too.
maids, and masseuses
Yep.
for the cheap. So at the end of the day, you're going to have to combat this idea of poverty and how the attitudes towards poverty change the working environment in those countries. And you're not going to be able to do that through American companies. If anything, I do actually suggest that American companies provide opportunities a lot of times. Often they can abuse those opportunities. And that's what we have to be careful of and monitor for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But it gets back to my thing. It's
Universal
just like, how does
Declaration
it
of Human
affect
Rights.
me every day? It's for me. It's just I don't want to have to wonder if I'm supporting slave wages, no matter what. And I do understand the concept. Like I support
By
Slaves
globalization.
don't get wages,
By-
by the
by
way.
Amish.
Yeah, well, that's true. You're
what?
right. You're right.
You just gotta buy Amish.
Buy Amish and that's
buy
it.
Amish.
Do they use burlap? Because I really like the feel of that on my skin.
Whenever I find out that there's a company that I'm using their product and I find out that they're doing something completely deplorable, in my opinion, I switch products. I do research and I find
Yeah.
out something
Sure.
that I
Does
cannot
that-
feel like I'm ruining somebody's life.
Does
by
that
purchasing.
change what's happening in other countries?
No, my one little purchase doesn't change that, but I can keep spreading the knowledge that I have, and
it helps your
I don't have to
conscience.
contribute to it.
yeah.
That's my big thing. I don't want to contribute to it personally.
And you can inform
yeah.
other people. I think the more awareness there is about their unsafe practices or their inhumane practices, the more likely they'll be to have to make a change because they'll be confronted with the knowledge of the purchasing consumer.
Yeah.
And doing it by example is also, better than just saying, "Hey, we should do this," and then not
and then
doing
not doing
it
anything.
yourself.
Yeah.
Right.
So like cat food, okay? I found out maybe a year ago or so that Purina, Iams, Friskies, all the big name brands of cat and dog food, they source their fish from these slave ships, like literal slave ships, slave fishing ships in Southeast Asia. And Walmart stocks that same fish on their aisles, so does Sam's Club, a couple of other big box stores, Target. So I personally changed to a Canadian-based company that sources from regional fish and regional animals, and they practice humane animal raising practices or whatever. I sleep better at night, and I tell everyone that I know that has a cat, like you, about it.
Yeah.
What do you do about the people in economic situations who aren't able to transition over to slightly more expensive products? But
Yeah, it's $5 more. So
Yep. And that adds up for the people who are struggling to
Oh,
make ends meet.
absolutely.
I mean,
it
I'm not rich.
And
at all.
judgment, I don't think judgment
Bored.
is passed on anybody who is, possibly an oppressed person themselves, like, that sounded kind of...
If there
That's
was
not
more
kind of awful, but
transparency
you
in
know what I mean, like-
labeling,
Let her speak.
sorry.
Well, I mean,
sorry.
you can only... You know what you can do, what's within your means to help others and to make the situation better without harming yourself or your family's situation.
And
Awareness awareness. I
well,
think that's the key.
I wanted to go back to something that you guys were saying about the application of human rights, since that's a field that I have experience in.
Yeah.
I've worked internationally with the development of human rights, and the big problem there is what you were saying before about choosing your battles. I don't think realistically that choosing your products based on how the products are made is going to make as much of an impact as fighting the sources of a lot of this human rights obstruction.
That's true.
And so, universally around the world, anytime you have people who resist human rights development, it's almost certainly because of traditionalist and religious values. It's because people don't want to change. They don't want to allow for the development of society to go away from what they know or what they trust works for them. It's a resistance to it. Try to get women's empowerment around the world today, and all you're going to find about is how that would lead to the downfall of society. Honestly speaking, until you're able to confront, or at least encourage the world to verbally and mentally confront the oppression of tradition and religion, you're never going to get to the point where you can have a realistic adult conversation about how products are manufactured around the world and how that affects people's lives. Because there are still people in some of the richest countries in the world who are literal slaves. We have more slaves today than we had in the year 1800, and that's saying a lot.
That is alarming, to say the
That
least.
makes me want to cry a little bit.
Yeah.
A lot.
All right, so
Right, yeah, there we
so-
go. That's is that your goal now, to make guests cry every time?
well, we've got like a 50% success rate.
It's usually me.
That's the lived experience you're looking for in people, right?
Oh,
You get them
yes.
to cry,
Yeah.
and then they change.
We just group hug it out.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly, we're about halfway through the table on pulling out short gripes for the end of the show. So short. Anna, I don't believe we've heard from you yet.
Well, I brought up fear and fear-mongering and the war
okay.
machine. That's my major gripe right now is just like the gusto and the fever, or like the excitement to go to war and bomb someone and kill someone. That's my gripe. But I brought that up already. So
Okay.
we can move on.
Annie, did you get your turn?
Well, I felt kind of like an asshole because, like, I was just thinking about how impossible it is to become a successful musician and to have that be your career, the thing that you love to do. But yeah, I do feel like an asshole because we're talking about things that are far more important than that. Yeah,
I did ask Don about Bitcoin, so don't worry, I'm setting the bar. Jeffrey sets the bar up here. I set it pretty low, so anywhere in between, you're okay to be.
But no, I mean, I think it's also, you know, art saves lives, man. And
Well, that-
I would agree.
Yeah.
You know, I thought it was very interesting in the hypothetical question. Nobody did say an artist of any kind. I mean, in terms of a true artist, you know.
Yeah.
Richard Feynman was
I
an
was
artist.
thinking
Well,
myself.
whatever.
Well, if I could come up with a gripe right now, I would
Wait,
have
did
to
we
say
hear a
that-
gripe from then everybody, Michael and?
But this is related.
Okay, excellent.
We jump topics easily, but
Yeah.
I wanted
Okay.
to say we still have a great difficulty in the 21st century accepting that selfishness is okay. And I'm not talking about the Ayn Rand, fuck everyone else kind of selfishness. I'm talking about the need to take care of yourself before you're able to help other people.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well-being, your
Yeah.
well-being.
If
Exactly.
you can't take care of your own well-being and create music and do something you love, then how are you going to find the energy
Right.
or the attention to help other people?
It
we
eats your
talk.
soul.
We talk a lot about sexuality and how and the dynamic in North Dakota, how it's a little bit different, and we've talked a lot about like feminist issues. One thing that I've always thought was interesting is I've dated a lot of women that
Who?
put.
Is she
That-
from
No,
Canada?
no, don't call a
names.
person a witch.
What's that?
You're objectifying.
The
Wait,
woman
what?
who?
Oh. Okay. Gotcha. I dated women who. All right. I didn't even know what you were saying right away.
I wasn't asking who.
That's what I thought you were doing.
What's her name?
I thought you were like, I don't believe you.
That's what I thought.
Pixar didn't happen. All right, go on.
Who put everybody else before themselves.
Yeah.
To a point that they are never happy. And I never understood, for me personally, I never understood that because I put myself before everybody else. So I never quite understood that idea of putting everybody before yourself. And I mean, everybody, strangers, family, everybody before themselves. And it just never made any sense to me. And I'd always try to tell them, I'm like, if you're not happy, if you don't take the effort to make yourself happy first, how are you actually...
They're trained to make sure that everybody else is happy, and that's supposed to make them happy somehow.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an internal struggle that I've had.
I would agree with that.
And I appreciate it. I don't think either one of you have apologized at all for anything that you've said ever for being here.
Or you just have an opinion. Or so many of the other... linguistic analysis of how we've raised women to be submissive.
Yeah.
And it's,
I'm sorry, this is just my opinion, or
yeah, they'll say, just a moment, please. No,
yeah.
I want a moment of your time. Listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's kind of so many of the ways that we've taught women how to communicate in order to diminish their opinion and their value. And it's kind of frustrating. But it took me a long time to understand the privilege inherent in being a guy. And I'm still learning. And it's that's if I had to say anything,
I mean, it's just
You can
great.
see it in any work
I
environment.
would want to see schools teach about privilege because it's
Yeah.
not something.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
It's not
Yeah.
something that you can get easily just inherently by looking at society. A lot of the ad hoc reasoning that we come up with to explain how society works includes all of those sociocultural norms. And we don't understand that's how we're raised.
You know, just an interesting side note of that story I told earlier
Yeah.
about, I taught about privilege, and I taught about Christian, white, male, and heterosexual privilege. And I loved that one of the guys' wives called in. This is a class earlier than the good one, but one of the guys' wives called in to complain because I was teaching about... I had a gay agenda because I was teaching about heterosexual privilege. And I love that it was the guy's wife. So the guy went home and he's like, today I had to learn about homos. And then the wife's like, well, I'm going to call the college and complain.
Maybe she's paying for his education.
Maybe she's internalizing his struggle and she's trying to make sure that he's happy first.
I was
Yeah,
gonna
it's
say-
like he's trying to teach him.
I think she's still in denial.
Yeah.
She's
Don's visibly stressed out.
That kind of shit,
He
man.
wants
Oh my
to lay
God.
back down on the couch, but he's worried I'm going to ask about mom and dad.
Oh my gosh.
Actually, yeah, on a quick note, I think teaching people the limits of politeness would be really helpful, especially if they were kids.
What are the limitations of
That's
that?
an interesting. That's a very
I haven't
interesting-
thought about it much, and it was something I was not really taught, but I do know I was taught to be polite,
Okay.
but I wasn't taught the limits of politeness, and sometimes that bites me in the ass.
Yeah.
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 Because I don't think about myself first almost automatically in a lot of situations where it's just like, what? Looking back, I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking? Like, why didn't I do this?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh shit, I've programmed myself, and it's something I'm struggling with now. So
We actually had a whole live show, Open Mic Gripe live radio show about politeness.
And
one,
etiquette.
Really?
and one of the things that you probably do the same thing now is you get stuck in conversations that you don't want to have because you're a polite listener.
Yeah.
You're somebody that makes eye contact, nods their head, and maybe even
right
polite
now.
I'm making direct eye contact, and he's like, yes.
yeah.
But I got him in a small confined room.
No choice here.
But yeah, and we that's what kind of our conversation, because I am a polite person as well. Although I am narcissistic, and I don't think that's in question. At the same time, I'm also polite in that I do that same thing, and I get stuck in conversations where I don't feel comfortable turning away that I see so many people do, or looking at their phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or doing
Whereas I
Well,
find
this
that
is that, like... Oh, I'm sorry.
no,
No, I'm
Go
not
ahead.
sorry.
Oh, it's getting real in here.
In the Midwest of America, there's this real striving for politeness, striving to not offend anyone, like North Dakota nice, Minnesota nice. There's even billboards of it. John Oliver did a whole segment on it. And that impedes our ability to understand other people, our ability to have any kind of controversial conversations. Like when I was growing up, religion, politics, money, sex, you don't talk about any of that stuff at the dinner table, let alone in the car on the way to grandma's house or anywhere else. You just don't bring it up because it's rude. What are we left to talk about then?
It paints a picture that discussion itself is rude.
Yes,
weather and
exactly
music.
Yeah. Pretty much, yeah.
Even last night, I told somebody who was asking very pointed questions. They were asking questions in a way that made it sound like, I bet you don't know the answer to this. And I told that person that his questions are pointed and ingratiating, and they don't really allow people to, they feel like they're being tested. And it's not a very nice way to communicate. And that person appreciates it because no one else is willing to say that to them. So I find that people are far more comfortable when you, of course, not shaming them in a group of people, but pull them aside and just say, this is not a very polite way to speak.
Sometimes you can just call them out right there, though, can't you? I mean, why pull them aside if they're being a bigot in front of an entire room, or if they are being condescending in an entire room? In that case, everybody there deserves to hear the response.
Anything along that line, I always feel it comes down to maliciousness. And if somebody is speaking in a way that they don't understand that it's wrong or offensive to people, or maybe just off-putting, then maybe take them aside and not publicly shame them. But if they're being outwardly malicious, where it's homophobic or
if I can point out, there's one tendency around here that I've noticed that I haven't seen anywhere else, and I think it must, in my opinion, it just must come from this idea that we're taught not to talk about controversial topics in the Midwest, is that people stop looking at each other's faces and they go on these epic rants. They're not even figuring out whether or not the people they're speaking at.
Wait, is this when you're talking in a mirror? You're just like...
They're talking to hear themselves, right?
Right. And so they're no longer looking for cues to determine whether or not the people are interested. And they're sort of looking past the person they're talking, not to, but talking at.
As a woman, though, sometimes it's funny because I'll do this when I'm speaking as a way to, like, I know that if I'm looking at the faces around me, I can almost feel that the disdain coming, because, like, I'm speaking and I really want to hear what you fucking have to say. So, yeah, like, I kind of use that as a tactic to get my point out and to focus on my point without looking at all these eyes on me waiting for me to fucking finish, or watching their mouths like waiting to talk,
Oh, wow.
So
like it's self-conscious.
I guess, next time you see that, kind of like check who's doing it, because sometimes it's just a way to get your fucking point across without being stopped, to just take that distraction away.
I can applaud that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good point.
Thank you for bringing that up. Actually, that's not something I'd ever considered. I think we all have to just kind of deal with the difficulties. I certainly have culture shock here in the Midwest.
Yeah.
Where are you originally from then, man?
I lived most of my life outside of the States. For the most part, I was born and for a certain period of time raised in the Midwest. But I've never really... I often feel like a foreigner around here.
Oh, okay.
I can't talk about masturbation in public without people giving me weird looks.
Well, when you moved back here, like I was raised in the Air Force and lived all over America, and I spent a lot of time as a kid in Italy and Germany. And then my dad retired and we moved to Grand Forks. And there's no people of color here, first of all, obviously. And then I met people who had never, ever met a single person of color.
Right.
Not even Native American, and there's reservations all over the place up here. So that was really frustrating for me. It's still a grip of mine, that the kind of isolationist Midwest idea of keeping to yourself and being polite, and even like within the region, stay up here, don't let other people in, like refugees. And now I'm going on a tangent, but
no, I always have to laugh when people are like, because numerous times I've heard people, when I've been on my travels, and people that have been in North Dakota, they've been like, oh yeah, North Dakotans are so nice, and all this, and I'm really like, yeah, because you're a white Christian, so of course, people in North Dakota are going to be nice to you.
And I got duped into that for a really long time, because everyone was so nice up here. I'm like, oh, well, I want to move back to North Dakota after college, and I did, and then started realizing, like, all the shitty things that people said.
Right.
And especially
Once
with
they
social
take
media
the
now,
hood
they really
off,
say those things.
And I think the worst is just the women's rights issues in North Dakota.
I was going to
how
say,
far
just wait until they
behind-
figure out you're a woman.
Yeah.
And you'll see how fast they're willing to
I was a
fight for
really
you.
polite, quiet woman for
I can understand why so many young women want to move out of the Midwest. That they have to work so hard to fight for just the most basic appreciation and realization of their rights in this area. And it's not something, I mean, it's something that should have been decided a long ass time ago. And it's still a daily conversation for people. That baffles me. I just can't. It's hard to swallow sometimes.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, I'm
Amen.
glad you appreciate that. I'm glad you even notice it.
Well, I've always said that we have an obligation. When you live in a democracy, you have an obligation to participate. Now, sometimes that means politically, and if you're not into politics, that's cool, as long as you go out and vote, and you know who the candidates are. And that means state, city, nationally, be a part of it.
Yeah.
That's your civil duty. That's your civil responsibility. But also, when it comes to just being active in society, you're never going to feel at home. You're never going to feel like you belong in a community until you've fought side by side with the people who want better access to something, whatever that something is. Maybe it's bike lanes. Maybe it's reproductive rights. But unless you're part of that struggle, you're never going to feel like you've connected to your neighbors. And so if you do appreciate women's rights, go out there and help your local women's clinic. You know, go out there and help your local rape and abuse crisis centers. Go out there and participate every single day and realize that that's the only way we can help each other just achieve a better quality of life.
Yeah, very true.
Then again, you could also just binge watch Netflix.
You watch the L Word.
Let's go down the rabbit hole.
Do copious amounts of drugs and have pharmaceutically assisted moments of introspection.
I like how you can even tell when I'm processing in my brain. I'm like, all right, I've got to wrap up Jeffrey right now. So, and you're like, oh, you just did it yourself. So.
Absolutely.
Good conversation, guys.
Guys,
Very
thank you.
stimulated.
Thank you so much for coming out on the podcast today. Well, let's wrap this episode up. But if you have any last minute gripes you want to get in there, if you want to pitch your band at all.
Yeah, and do you guys have any gigs coming up?
Not right now, but we have been recording a lot, and we wanted to update our SoundCloud, so we'll send you guys a link to that.
Excellent.
Maybe you could put it on next to the podcast.
Do you guys
So
do you also have and then let everybody know where they can find you on your Facebook, SoundCloud, anything like that.
Yeah, well, we're on SoundCloud as just co-host app. So
Co-host app.
And then on Facebook, it's co-host app too, isn't it?
Yeah.
Once again, that's Homo sapiens.
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh yeah, that's what it
That's
stands.
what it stands
It
for,
came
yes.
from
Right.
like dude, man, kid, bro, you know, all those slangs, and then I was just kind of like playing off of that idea, making up my own kind of trendy little word.
Yeah.
And we started calling each other hosaps. Hey, hosaps. Hosap. And it devolved into hosap.
All right, okay, I can't hosap.
yeah.
It sounds like something else, right?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
thanks,
You're
Doc.
not alone with
That, 'cause I'm still struggling over here.
You've never thought of the idea of hosap?
No, you
Not
just must not be
intended,
that
though.
funny.
It's just about, like, well, to me, it reminds me of the Declaration of Human Rights, really. Is like, we're all in this together. Let's just fucking,
Yeah.
it's kind of hippie or
Like
whatever.
you said, it's a
peace and
lofty
love, but
hippie idea.
lofty idea. But, and then on a more, well, it kind of is, but then just more on a personal level, the way we function
No,
as a
okay.
band, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we're just all like, we look at each other with deep respect and admiration.
There's not like a lead.
No,
There's
we're
no
absolutely
red
opposed to that.
man,
No
no
fascism
women.
in music,
Okay.
no
We're
artificial
very
myths,
adamant about
nothing.
that.
Yeah, we have an anarcho-socialist structure within our band creatively. If we ever start making money, it's all going to be anarcho-socialism. No leader, no CEO, none of that fucking corporate bullshit.
Plus snacks and drinks.
And snacks and drinks. Yeah. Yeah, man.
But yeah, if you're looking for us on the Webby Web, it's COHOSAP on SoundCloud and Facebook.
Yep.
Excellent.
We
Thank you
we
so
love
much.
each other.
Excellent.
We love you too.
Yeah, thank you guys so much. This
Thanks
was
for
fun.
having
you.
us.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
thank
listen.
you.
What is your show's on Wednesday nights?
Well, our radio show is live every Thursday evening.
Thursday,
But
okay.
we publish
That's right.
the first half of the week, so we'll try to get it out between Monday. Yeah. around
Is,
that.
but your live show is obviously not pre-recorded because I was able
That's
to
correct.
call
Right.
you guys in. Okay.
Yep. We encourage
Thinking.
people to call in.
But this is pre-recorded, and then you edit it, and then broadcast it, or do you kind of try to keep it as raw?
With
as-
minimal editing, we'll put it
Minimal.
together
Sweet.
and broadcast it on our.
This one's gonna be a
our
bitch to
website.
put together.
Yeah.
With the cutting, and we apologize for anything that was
Oh,
kind of cut.
Don't
in
even
and out,
worry about that. We
I
don't
think
care.
we got it all.
That was a blast.
for the most part.
All right.
Might be
So-
some jumps in and out.
Oh yeah. So
But of
Jay
course-
and I would like to thank you for joining us and listening to the Open Mic Gripe, the place where serious and silly complaints come to chat.
We will be bringing you new episodes every week, and we encourage everyone to participate by sending in your gripes, grievances, and opinions to openmicgripe@gmail.com or tweeting us at openmicgripe or commenting on our Libsyn page, which is openmicgripe.libsyn.com. And of course, we want to thank CoHoSap for stopping in and griping with us.
Yes, we
You're
enjoyed this
welcome.
episode, and if you didn't, check us out next week when we will be discussing your gripes.
Yeah.